Now here's a couple of pretty safe bets for you. First of all, you're not going to read about object-oriented programming very long, maybe 2 pages, before you see this word encapsulation. And the second bet that I can give you that's pretty safe is you're going to see something on the exam about this word encapsulation. And so in this short video, I just want to talk about what encapsulation is, and I put this in a separate video to make sure that you get this. Now, encapsulation is one of the foundational functionalities of object-oriented programming. Now, what exactly is it? It is something that really happens automatically when we start to use classes and objects in our programming. It is this concept of packaging our functionalities or our code into our properties and methods and so forth inside our classes. And then we use that class to instantiate objects that actually are operated on by our code. Now what we're actually doing here is we're hiding the implementation details of the functionality in those objects, and the user is just clicking on buttons or maybe even calling certain things, and it is behind the scenes calling the details of the functionality. Now what advantage does encapsulation provide us? Well, first of all, simplicity for the consumer. And the consumer can be the end user, but most likely the consumer is going to be a programmer who is utilizing our object. Now, I mentioned earlier in the course that the way object-oriented programming was presented to all of us way back in the day was that you're going to build so many objects that can be reused. You're going to build so many classes, I should say, that will be reused in applications that you do over and over and over, that after just a few years of programming, you're going to have so many classes out there that someone's going to come to you and say, hey, let's build this application. And you say, oh, wait a minute. I've already got all the classes for that. I'll write a little code to tie all those together. I'll have this thing done by 11 o'clock and we'll go play golf, right? Well, the whole encapsulation and classes and so forth does help us save a lot of code and write a lot faster. But I don't know that I've seen the 11 o'clock golf game yet. Now, encapsulation also gives us security, because malicious attacks are much more difficult if the code is not visible to us or is not visible to anyone who's looking at the functionality. Now, how is encapsulation accomplished? Well, a class is a container for encapsulation. And accessibility can be limited to the methods and variables used in the class via modifiers, which we'll talk about in a video entitled Access Modifiers in a separate place in the course here. Now, any method or variable that is not intended to be used from outside the class should be hidden using that private modifier. Now, keep in mind, private is the default in C#. If you don't mention a modifier, private is what you're going to end up with. Now, properties in C# are an excellent example of encapsulation, right? The values can be read or changed from outside the object, but the actual functionality is hidden from the consumer of that object in those get and set accessors, and we'll talk about those a little bit later on as well. So just keep in mind, encapsulation really is this whole idea of putting our code into private methods inside our classes, and so that people can call these things, but they don't have to know exactly what's going on or how it's happening, and they don't have to see all the little details of the magic that happens when they use a particular class and when they get functionality out of it.